Cool. All right, we now welcome on Adam Kaufman, host of the Celtics Beat Podcast. Adam, how are we doing?
Good. How about you?
Good to see you. All right, let's start this off. Give me your thoughts on how Celtics fans should feel about the Gordon Hayward trade.
Well, unfulfilled, incomplete. I think those are a couple of ways to look at it. I mean, you got to remember, obviously, if Gordon Hayward, regardless of what Danny Ainge has said, most people didn't expect Gordon Hayward to be back once things got down a certain road. I mean, if you had said at the very end of the season, is he going to opt out? Is he going to return? Yeah, most people might have expected him to return. But as more and more news started coming out, and then it became increasingly clear that he was going to leave, most would have expected him to go to the Pacers in a sign and trade deal. And had that happen, then you'd have a Miles Turner and someone coming back the other way. And so you could put a name on it, right? And Miles Turner's kind of a polarizing figure in that some people think he's a really good young basketball player who Brad Stevens could have coached up. Other people think that he's not all that good and he's overpaid and he, wasn't worth the bloated contract that the Celtics, ultimately would have had to inherit. So, but at least he was a name. With Hayward going to Charlotte, we just have this looming, TPE, trade player exception. And so it's a massive exception, obviously, that Danny Ainge and the Celtics can use to bring in another star caliber player, up to $28 million in salary. Yeah. The question is Danny Ainge going to use it? Is he going to be able to use it? Is that guy going to come available? Is it a Buddy Hield? Is it a Nick Vucevic? Is it an Aaron Gordon? Is it an Otto Porter? Is it you can look at NBA player salaries and identify which guys could potentially spring loose in the next year. But until that TPE is either used, be it trade deadline, next offseason, or expires, which is really a worst case scenario, that is, the point in time that the Celtics fans are going to look at it and truly evaluate the trade. Right now, it's just, all right, Gordon Hayward's not back, and some people like me are disappointed in that. Other people think that he, wasn't very good and was redundant in the first place, and so good riddance to you. Don't let the door hit you on your way out. But I just think it's a certain void that the C's haven't filled, and I don't think they're going to fill it anytime soon.
Do you think Nesmith can play that role, or do you think he's going to have to? At all?
No, I don't even think you can ask that of him, for a number of reasons. And that doesn't mean I think Aaron Nesmith sucks or something like that. It's, he's a rookie who's right out of college, who obviously no summer league, no real preseason. There's going to be a couple of games and then boom, NBA season starts and you're thrust into a certain, role, whatever that is. Will he be part of the rotation early? Remains to be seen. Brad Stevens, at least publicly, seems to be pretty high on him, and we know he can shoot. He's the self-proclaimed sniper, but how well is that going to translate to the NBA? We thought Carson Edwards could shoot, and he is obviously not really part of this team right now. Yes, he's technically on the roster, but no one has any sort of high hopes for him. So and Nesmith certainly isn't going to come in and give you what Hayward did from an efficiency standpoint, from a two-way player standpoint, from a ball movement and running the offense standpoint. I mean, those are some veteran attributes, obviously. Gordon Hayward brought a lot to the game that the stat sheet didn't totally account for, and I know as Celtics fans, we like to talk about that sort of thing, going back to Al Horford and others, but I think there was a real value in Gordon Hayward that a lot of people didn't see, that, Charlotte fans like yourself, are going to enjoy, provided that he's actually healthy there, which he very rarely was, if ever truly 100% during his time in Boston. But Nesmith, it's unrealistic to expect that, he's going to come in out of Vanderbilt after playing, 2 college seasons and be that guy or anything close to it.
Okay, so should Celtics fans be that upset with not getting a Miles Turner? Because I think Tristan Thompson's actually a better upgrade than Miles Turner. What are your thoughts?
So, if you said to me, which guy do you want, Tristan Thompson or Miles Turner, it would be Thompson. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And for a variety of reasons, including the contract. Tristan Thompson has a very favorable contract. Miles Turner is getting $18 million a year for the next few seasons. Thing is, and I'm not 1,000% sure of this, but I think in the way that, the salary cap and things can be kind of not massaged like the NFL, but finagled a little bit, that conceivably the Celtics could have had both. They could have brought in Turner and Thompson. Now, I don't know if they even would have wanted to do that, but I just think, pure numbers, contractually speaking, I think they could have pulled that off. But even still, let's say I'm wrong about that. I'm not a big Turner guy. I mean, I would have taken Serge Ibaka. I would have taken, whose name is escaping me right now. The veteran we were all talking about for a couple of minutes until he ended up signing elsewhere. It doesn't matter. But ultimately, Tristan Thompson is a good fit. And I think that, that's another thing that I keep saying and tweeting about, probably obnoxiously, is that, the Celtics are they're not a better team than they were last year. I don't think they're all that much worse either. I think they're pretty comparable because, again, and I worry about Kemba Walker's knee. I think that's a real concern. But, losing Enes Kanter, losing Brad Wanamaker, you upgraded at both of those spots with Tristan Thompson and Jeff Teague. There's no debate in that. But you didn't replace a Gordon Hayward, who gives you a lot, at least when healthy, that other guys don't. Problem is, people look at it as a wash because he was so infrequently healthy. But yeah, I really like Tristan Thompson. I like he just gives you certain things that Miles Turner doesn't. Yes, Miles Turner's a good player. He's a top 5 defensive player of the year a couple of years ago, but Tristan Thompson has a championship experience, a playoff experience, a grit, a snarl, an attitude, a physicality that the Celtics, really have lacked going back to Kendrick Perkins. They've wanted and needed a guy like that. And you've got a lot of that in Marcus Smart without the championship experience. But, now you have, as Tristan Thompson said, now he can be Marcus Smart at the big man position. I think that Celtics fans are going to fall in love with that.
Yeah. So switching sides, how should Hornets fans feel?
Confused. I think that, it's, Hornets fans probably, and I can't speak to it as well as you could, obviously, you got the sweatshirt, but Hornets fans probably could feel a sense of relief that Kemba Walker's not there anymore because of what's happened with that knee and the uncertainty of the knee going forward. Maybe you feel pretty good about, the Hornets not giving him that big contract or even a supermax contract or something like that, while he was eligible for it. But, to turn around after not paying the face of your franchise, the identity of your team for the last almost a decade, and seemingly say, okay, we're not going to bring Kemba back, but this is our direction and we're rebuilding and, we're tired of just being the 7 or 8 seed and we aspire for more. And you start to kind of build in that direction to not even, a shade over a year later, hand Gordon Hayward 4 years, $120 million, a contract that he would have struggled to get fully healthy coming off of, all-star campaigns in Boston, never mind what he was, where he was a shell of his Utah self over the past 3 seasons. And then to, to waive Batum and effectively for the first few years, pay Gordon Hayward $39 million a year, a guy who, again, you can't say it enough, hasn't been healthy the last few years. It's such ass backward logic in terms of, how to manage a team. And for all that Michael Jordan was as a player, and he is, the best ever in my opinion. And if you want to dispute that, he's certainly, right there, top 2, top 3, an owner
he's right there with James Dolan.
Well, it's just confusing, right? I was blown away. I never thought, I never thought the Knicks were in the picture. You bring up James Dolan. I never thought the Knicks were in the picture for Gordon Hayward. The Hornets were always this team kind of lurking on the outside because you had to at least acknowledge they signed him to the offer sheet, back in 2014, expressed interest again in him in 2017. They have a love affair with Gordon Hayward. Something about Gordon Hayward Michael Jordan loves, and clearly Gordon Hayward is a fan of all things Jordan and Charlotte as well. And hopefully, truly, I'm rooting for Gordon Hayward. I would love to see him bounce back, be healthy, be successful, be an all-star, make an all-NBA third team if that's even a possibility. I'd love to see that kind of comeback player of the year story for Gordon Hayward. Seems like a good guy, but for Charlotte to manage itself, it blew people away when Charlotte swooped in with that offer. Everybody assumed this is an inevitable sign and trade deal to the Pacers. That's what's going to happen. He's Indiana boys going home.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Hornets to come in with the number they did, it blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah, so I feel there's two things. One, at least the Hornets are trying. I mean, it's depressing every year. I mean, last year I thought we came into the league with the worst roster. I think Borrego's an okay coach. We don't know yet. I mean, he hasn't been given any talent really. But yeah, I struggle to comprehend this contract, especially taking the cap hit with Batum.
Yeah.
And it's just classic Hornets, I feel like. I feel like this is Nick Batum's contract 2.0, or we're just going to be like, oh, crap, he's going to be a cheerleader for the next 2 years, which I really like Gordon Hayward. I do, but, I mean, he hasn't been healthy, and you just don't know what you're getting, and just continue on this rebuild. I feel like we could have gotten another good lottery pick and maybe even Cade Cunningham in this next draft.
Sure.
But,
I mean, how are Hornets fans going to feel if Gordon Hayward goes out and plays 40 games this year, or, you know, or plays, you know, 60 games, but only gives you 17 points per. And unlike in Boston, like, he's the guy, you know, he, for the most part, is the number one offensive option. I mean, I can't even imagine. I don't know what the Charlotte sports talk radio scene is, but the backlash that will be experienced if that happens. I mean, if Hayward thought that people came after him, you know, media wise or fan wise in Boston, it could get pretty ugly there in Charlotte. Again, I'm presuming that people, you know, care in the same, you know, rabid, passionate way that you know, Northeast teams are known for caring about their clubs. But, you know, it's going to be an interesting season for Gordon Hayward and for Hornets fans.
Yeah, I mean, the Hornets are just the definition of mediocrity. I mean, every year it's just like, hey, we love getting the 9th and 10th seed. Like, great. What does that get you? Get you a late lottery pick, and that's a shot in the dark. But, I mean, I think Hornets fans will be happy if they just make the playoffs and be somewhat relevant. I think that's what Michael Jordan's going for. Otherwise, I have no idea what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm right there with you. I don't know what the objective is. You know, we say it all the time with regard to NBA teams. Like, you want to be at the bottom of the league or you want to be at the top in the league. You know, to live in that, like, 7 to 10 seed, you're in no man's land. Mm-hmm. You're living in mediocrity. And like you outlined before, you're great. So you get bounced in the first round. Maybe you go to the second round, and or you just barely miss the playoffs, or somewhere in between, you get a crappy pick, unless the lottery balls fall in your favor anyway, if you don't make the postseason and you finish with a seed like that. So it's not where you want to be. And it seems like you're spending bad money in Gordon Hayward. Again, no slight on Gordon Hayward as a person. This is just what he's been the last few years as a player. You're going to tell me Gordon Hayward and his agent weren't totally shocked that offer came in from Charlotte?
Yeah, no wonder he loves Charlotte and Jordan.
They're like, of course he's opting out of $32 or $34 million or whatever it was with Boston for 1 year. Like, who in their right mind wouldn't? He just got a raise coming off 3 injured seasons.
Yeah, it's beyond me, but we'll see how it turns out. Who knows? But let's go back to the Celtics. Do you think the Celtics have any big trades in plan this season or anything before?
Before, no. I mean, we're inside 2 weeks from the season starting. Yeah. I know there's a segment of social media that wants to obsess over this James Harden situation, but, you know, 1, Harden doesn't want to come to Boston. 2, what are you going to have to give up to get him? You know, you're going to send Jaylen Brown to and more, by the way. It's not even like it'd be a 1-for-1. You're going to send Jaylen Brown and some collection of players and picks to Houston for a James Harden that doesn't really want to come here? No, I wouldn't. I don't think Danny Ainge would. He's got a good core going right now that, you know, yeah, I mean, James Harden's an elite offensive player. He's not a great defensive player. And it's not like he's got this extreme history of winning in the postseason or championship pedigree or culture or anything like that. I mean, I don't know. I've been rooting for James Harden to go to Brooklyn, because I just think it could be such a disaster. Him and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving all on the same team, all wanting the ball and the drama and the infight. Like, please sign me up. Put it on a reality show around it and put it on television for all of us to experience together. That's the dream come true. But as far as a big trade for the Celtics, I hedge this by saying I never envision the Celtics dealing for Kyrie Irving in August right before the season, but I certainly don't see them going out and making a monumental trade involving the TPE, let's say, before this upcoming season starts. I think the Celtics feel pretty good about where they're at right now. And if, maybe they can make a move for a guy that springs loose before the trade deadline, but I don't think anything is coming quickly.
Where do you see Harden going? If you had to take a guess.
Yeah, honestly, I think he's back in Houston. I really do. I don't, and unless he is willing to hold out for the year to really force their hand, they say, well, crap, we got to get something for this guy. Then sure, obviously it doesn't make any sense to pay him to not play. But he seems to be doing his best to say, get me the hell out of here. And, Russell Westbrook's already gone. I still think he's back because I think Houston's going to hold firm, but after that, I'd like to see him in Brooklyn. I think Philly would be fine. Trying to think of some of the other teams that he's expanded his.
Today he said the Heat and the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Heat, and I know this is floated around social media too. Do you want to give up? And I'm not saying these guys are James Harden, but they are part of your future versus playing for right now. Do you want to give up Hero and Robinson for what could be a year of Harden? I would think long and hard about doing that. I really would. Those guys showed they were, impactful contributors last year, and they're young and they're only getting better. I could see it if you're the Bucks, depending on what you got to give up, because you're trying to do everything you can to convince Giannis to stay, and you're, petrified that he's going to walk. So that's kind of a desperate situation on both sides. And, they obviously tried to give Bogdanovich that huge deal that didn't pan out. But my gut, and I've been wrong plenty of times, my gut still tells me that he's back in Houston.
Yeah, the Bucks situation could be a disaster if Giannis leaves. I mean, that could be.
God.
I mean, these teams are just dishing out first round picks like it's nothing. All right. So we see how NFL is and how they've gotten through the season. How concerned are you about the NBA season with COVID?
How could you not be concerned, I guess, is where you start. But, they're not going to be in a bubble, at least to begin things. And depending on how the first half goes, there's a reason they haven't released the second half of the schedule. And I think part of that reason is because they know, hey, we could wind up back in Orlando in the bubble. We're not going to fully outline this thing until we get an idea what this pandemic looks like. And right now, numbers are spiking. Everything's on the rise. You got here in Massachusetts, almost 6,000 confirmed cases a day practically. This is as bad as it's been, and it's not getting any better. And you got a good segment of people that still are not taking this thing seriously. So it's not going anywhere. I think that you'd be right to be concerned, not being in the bubble, but they're going to take all the right measures, obviously, and protocols. If anything, I certainly put faith and trust in Adam Silver. I think he's an excellent commissioner. I think the success there in Orlando and lack of any positive cases. I mean, it was brilliantly put together and executed, but naturally it's tougher now when you've got teams playing across the country, and Toronto won't be there. Toronto will be in Tampa Bay now, so everything will be confined to the United States. But it's it just makes it more difficult to manage. And now players are going to be at home with their families and friends and doing whatever they're doing. If they break any sort of health and safety protocols as well, and that'll be on, there's an honor system element, I guess, to this whole thing. And then as you're tested each day, it'll, come to pass what you did or didn't do, and how fortunate or unfortunate, I guess, you were. But it's going to be similar to baseball. It's going to be similar to the NFL. And clearly there were hiccups with both. But, they're going to fight their damnedest, NHL as well, to get through those seasons once they get underway.
Yeah. Hey, it's okay though. They have the snitch hotline again this year.
Good. Good.
Before you go,
think of those Rivers father and son bond again.
Before you go, give me your bold prediction for the NBA season.
Bold prediction. Trying to think what would be a good one. How about the Sixers get worse than what they were last year? The Rockets will do better than they did last year, despite the uncertainty of that whole organization. The Lakers will go out in round 2 of the playoffs, and the Celtics reach the conference finals.
All right, those are certainly bold predictions. Adam, thank you for your time. All the best. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem.